How is it that Donald Trump's presidency continues to spark so much controversy, despite the constant barrage of his antics and misleading claims? On his first day in office, he made a bold claim. He would end the war in Ukraine. But 1,459 days later, that promise has yet to come to fruition. He didn't exactly deliver on that one, did he? This moment in history left many wondering whether the former president would resign due to his failure to achieve this monumental goal. We find ourselves in a rather strange place, where even the simplest of his actions are heavily scrutinized, and rightfully so. For instance, do you remember when Trump was mocked for dozing off during a church service? It's certainly an odd spectacle, but perhaps, just maybe, we're witnessing the kind of moment where America could finally have an energetic young president once again, something Trump didn't quite deliver during his tenure. Bless all who dedicate themselves to governing in our land, ... Those words uttered during a church service might as well have been the opening for a roast of the former president. While the national moment was meant to be solemn, Trump managed to find his way into the crosshairs of comedian Jimmy Kimmel, who had no issue delivering some brutally honest jabs. Kimmel, ever the skilled comic, highlighted some of Trump's most ridiculous moments, offering us plenty of material to laugh about. In fact, Kimmel wasn't the only one poking fun at Trump. There's a broader sense of amusement in the air when the former president's behavior is under the microscope. The world can laugh about Trump's awkwardness at church, his claim of being a deeply religious man who somehow couldn't recite the Lord's Prayer. It's a moment for Kimmel to shine. It's moments like this that fuel the comical frenzy surrounding Trump. Kimmel pointed out the hypocrisy in Trump's behavior, underscoring how the former president seemed to favor the trappings of religion, like the Bible and church services, but struggled with actual religious practices. At one point, Trump was seen attending a service, being asked about his thoughts on the event. His response: not exactly glowing. Not too exciting, he said when asked about the service. The simple, apathetic reply would make anyone wonder how someone with such a powerful position could so openly express disdain for what's supposed to be an important moment for the country. Kimmel and others had a field day with this moment. Imagine being frustrated with a church service. Much like you'd be stuck watching a children's movie instead of attending to matters of state. And what did Trump seem to care about the most? Not the service, but rather his appearance in the press. The former president, often known for his antics, wasn't pleased with how his attendance was portrayed. In his words, "Thank you very much," dismissing reporters who pressed him. For more, if you've ever watched a church service, you know the usual sense of reverence that accompanies it. Trump, though, was not having it. You could almost picture the scene in a comedy sketch, where Trump, disinterested and detached, sat through the moment only to leave with the same disregard he entered with. In truth, he wasn't even hiding it. He was caught in the act of doing what he does best, dismissing the seriousness of anything that doesn't revolve around his ego. And the internet had its fair share of fun with it. Kimmel didn't hold back. When making fun of Trump's notorious love for grandiose gestures, Trump only likes masks when it's followed by the word deportation. Now, that's a line that makes you laugh. But also think about just how far Trump's presidency pushed the boundaries of absurdity. The entire situation quickly snowballed into a series of hilarious critiques about Trump's behaviors. From his inability to properly engage in worship to his general unresponsiveness, the jokes piled on one after the other. But what makes this situation particularly interesting is how the audience's reactions seemed to mirror the national mood. Everyone was on the same page, laughing at the absurdity that had become of the former president's public appearances. Another one of Kimmel's priceless quips involved Trump's avoidance of saying the Lord's Prayer. Why did he refuse? According to Kimmel, the bishop, who led the service, had apparently failed to wear her MAGA hat, a jab at Trump's base. The humor here speaks volumes, showing just how deep the divide between Trump's supporters and his critics ran. We also saw the not-so-subtle mention of Trump's comments about people in need, those who are gay, lesbian, transgender, or people of color. Yet, in the face of a crisis, Trump's mind was elsewhere. His neglect to address these marginalized groups highlights how little he understood about empathy or leadership. And then, just when you think the situation couldn't get more ridiculous, Kimmel expertly points out Trump's attempt to weaponize disaster relief funding. Trump, ever the opportunist, suggested withholding aid for California's natural disasters until his demands were met. Can you imagine being in the middle of a disaster and having your recovery delayed because a politician wants to score political points? That's exactly what Kimmel sarcastically described. But what could be even more outrageous than Trump's handling of these issues? His blatant disregard for the well-being of others. In times of crisis, you would think a leader would rally the nation, but instead, Trump focused on pushing his agenda and retaliating against anyone who didn't fall in line with his vision. Then came the ultimate twist. In Kimmel's roast, Trump's view on the Delta smelt, a tiny fish that he claimed was overprotected. Kimmel sarcastically remarked, "How is it endangered? It's not getting any water." This absurdity was just another point in Trump's long list of controversies. Through all of this, what remains clear is that Trump's rhetoric often falls apart when examined against the facts. His exaggerations and inflammatory remarks don't hold up under scrutiny. And that's exactly what makes him such a polarizing figure. Kimmel's humor is an attempt to keep us grounded, laughing at the absurdity of it all while also drawing attention to the dangerous impact of such rhetoric on our nation. When you think about the state of the country during Trump's time in office, you have to ask, what was the real outcome of all his claims? If we follow the trail of fear-mongering, conspiracy theories, and divisiveness, we can see that his vision didn't make America great again, made America anxious, paranoid, and divided. But here's where things really take a turn, for all his rhetoric and posturing. Trump's presidency failed to meet the expectations of his supporters. His promises crumbled. He made bold claims but failed to deliver. So, how do you respond to that? With humor, of course, and that's where Kimmel thrives. He takes the absurdity of Trump's behavior, exposes it for what it is, and lets the audience laugh at the chaos that ensued. It's a strange form of therapy laughter as a coping mechanism for the stress Trump's presidency caused. So, when we look back at those 4 years, what do we remember? The chaotic rhetoric, the outlandish promises, and the constant jokes at his expense. Is that the legacy we want for America? For Kimmel, the point is clear. Laughter can be a form of resistance. It reminds us that no matter how much Trump tried to manipulate the narrative, there's always room for truth and humor to cut through the noise. Perhaps it's time we all take a page from Kimmel's book and laugh, not just at the ridiculousness, but also at the resilience of the American people who survived through it all. As we reflect on the chaos of those years, we're reminded of a simple truth. Trump's greatest enemy wasn't the media, the Democrats, or even the deep state. It was the truth.